Out of my way! Go!
Helvetii is a 2D action roguelite that began development all the way back in 2018 and is now finally seeing release 5 years later. And yet, it's not a game that feels out of place in current times, as difficult and grindy games continue to thrive. Whether it be Souls games, rogue games, call them what you will, fans can't seem to get enough of a core gameplay loop which generally consists of retreading areas over and over again, slowly progressing and becoming more powerful, and ultimately morphing into an unstoppable being that's capable of taking down what once seemed like an impossible hurdle in your path. Helvetii doesn't offer anything surprising or new in terms of gameplay, but its fun progression system, gorgeous art, and enjoyable action make it a worthy addition to the genre. The premise is interesting, with a bleak world beckoning to have its rich history explored, but unfortunately Helvetii ends up not doing all that much with its narrative. A blood-soaked, war-torn world with an evil war chief who enters a blood pact and is now threatening to take complete control sounds cool, but outside of the opening cutscene, the game never delves much deeper than its surface. There are some neat themes touched upon, such as corruption and greed, and I love the idea of a rot spreading across the lands and manifesting itself. It's just a shame that the opening moments are never much expanded upon, and ultimately this ends up becoming yet another 3 characters off to stop the evil bad guy telling. As for the action, which is probably what you're really here for, it's really solid in this title. As I mentioned, you can choose between 3 different heroes. We have the warrior 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐿, who is the most well-rounded of the cast, there's a beast named Reinhardt, and then rounding out the party is 𝐦𝐸eos, the druid. At the start of each run, you'll select the character you wish to use, with levels being broken up into 2 acts. The game does a solid job of differentiating these characters, as they each feature a solid assortment of unique skills and abilities from one another. 𝐸𝐸𝐿 is a bit stronger than the others and able to break through guarded enemies, Reinhardt is quicker and good at parrying attacks with the trade-off being lower health, and 𝐦𝐸eos strikes enemies from a distance and utilizes spells, but also seem to be the weakest of the crew. While I never ended up caring for 𝐦𝐸eos myself, it's nice to have options to suit different playstyles. Helvetii is of course run-based, which means that, you guessed it, when you fail a run, it's all the way back to Act 1, trudging through the same areas and taking down the same bosses again and again. Repetitive, yes, as fans of this genre should have expected, but at least the combat manages to be entertaining enough. One interesting feature in Helvetii is that you can control the camera to a limited degree using the right stick. There are moments in the game where it can be a bit hard to see ahead, so this can come in handy when dealing with what would otherwise be a blind leap of faith into a pit. Your standard jumping and slashing feel pretty decent, and they can be expanded upon with upgrades. The parry system isn't half bad either, though as many of you know, I'm not very good at parrying, and like many games, I ended up trying not to utilize it as much as possible, instead opting to slice and dodge my way through enemy waves, and that mostly worked out okay. Stringing together combos was simple, with options to attack in different directions, and you even have a powerful charge attack which will drain your magic, but dish out serious damage at full capacity. When dealing with enemies from a distance, projectiles can be tossed or spells cast, and your dash also serves as a way to pass through projectiles and other hazards. There are some advanced techniques like guard breaks and other cool special attacks too, but in the end, Helvetii feels relatively simplistic, and that's not a bad thing. I'd say my favorite part of the gameplay was in making deals with demons that you come across at altars. In exchange for your health or mana or whatever, you can gain access to some of the game's more powerful summons, which adds a bit of a risk-reward element to the gameplay. Another element of strategy comes in which character you'll take into an act, as you can switch between them after each successful completion of an area. The maps in this game are not large, with your goal almost always being the same: to take down the wave of enemies presented to you on a screen, and then proceed forward collecting loot and getting stronger. You'll come across shops where you can purchase health and other statistical upgrades, and you'll also be graded for your performance during each encounter, which can play into the amount of sigils that you earn. These sigils can then be spent on the game's hub world map and reward you with permanent upgrades that can affect both the entire party and individual characters. No surprise here either, it's going to be a grind to unlock everything, which is where most of the replayability in Helvetii will come from. Indeed, as with many rogue games, this would have been a relatively short experience if not for the high asking fees of upgrades and a steep challenge. Still, there are some ways to curve the difficulty, as players can adjust enemy damage in hopes of easing struggles, at least a bit. Another thing that's really great about Helvetii is its phenomenal hand-drawn art style. This is a gorgeous game that ran beautifully on my PC at 170 frames per second, which is the max for my monitor. It also looked and ran quite excellent on the limited time I spent on the Steam Deck version, for those that might be wondering. Even on the smaller handheld screen, Helvetii really shines, and it ran fluidly. Animations are great, with rich detailed backgrounds, well-crafted enemies, and lovely attention to detail across your journey. The different acts do look unique from one another, with all being quite visually appealing. The only issue I came across in terms of performance would be a crash at the end of doing the game's tutorial. This happened regardless of which character I used, but thankfully it was the only bug I came across, and the tutorial is separate from the main game. It's just a shame it was a black screen of death. As inspired as the visuals are, I really can't say the same for the sound design, unfortunately. The slashes and other attacks sound decent enough, but the small bits of character voice acting sprinkled throughout were pretty weak and out of place, and the soundtrack felt completely uninspired. Some of these tunes were downright irritating, to be honest. A bit of a shame considering how much I liked the look of Helvetii. While there is no shortage of roguelite games on the market, Helvetii is a welcome addition. The gameplay loop is fun and addicting enough, with an enjoyable upgrade system that will keep players busy for hours. Sure, the difficulty and overall design of this game can often feel like padding, and the narrative could have been so much more, and yet, Helvetii still offers very solid action. Coupled with a great visual style, it's easy to forgive some of Helvetii's shortcomings.
Watch this! Stay down!